Welcome back, YouTube, and thanks for joining me today. This is going to be part 2 of the 35 Whelen build on the Savage Axis. Today we're going to be assembling some of the components, mainly the bolt pieces to help with the bolt lift and the M-Carbo trigger spring kit. So first we're going to start with the bolt. Make sure you've got an empty firearm, magazine out, action empty. We're going to take a 1/4 Allen wrench, insert it into the back of the bolt. While it's on the rifle, go ahead and give it a little bit of pressure. Just a 1/4 turn is all you need. That'll go ahead and get that back of the bolt loosened up before you remove it. And you can open up the action, remove your bolt. We're just going to set the rifle out of the way. Next step is going to be to decock the bolt. So in order to do that, you just apply a little bit of pressure that direction on the back of the mechanism right here. You may want to use a rag to avoid pinching yourself. Some people do, but real easy to get it decocked. And then we're going to take our 1/4 inch Allen key again, insert it into the back, go ahead and remove that piece. This is under spring tension. It's not going to shoot across the room, but it's good to keep some pressure on it once you get near the end. You can see the bolt handle starting to spin freely, and that's it. So I've got a green spring that came out with the rear piece. Hold on to that green spring, you're going to need it. Go ahead and remove the original bolt handle. Push your cocking mechanism back up and dump out that small washer. We won't need this anymore. I'm going to hold on to it because it's an original part. I'll put it with the bolt handle, but we do not need that for the dash kit that we're installing. Now the kit from Dash Industries comes with 2 washers, a bearing, and a spacer. It's very easy to install. I like to go ahead and cock the mechanism right here. Take one of your bearings, lip down, and slide it on your firing pin. Next bearing, third piece, lip up. And at this point, we're going to add the Anarchy Outdoors bolt handle. Make sure that you've got the orientation correct. The bolt handle should be facing down with the Savage logo showing. You'll feel it kind of sit into place on there where it should be. Take the green spring, put it back on. Then we're going to place our spacer on the rear part. So at this point, there's 2 ways to reassemble the back part of the bolt. You can decock the bolt. That'll give you less spring tension. Screw it on, and then you've got to recock it by hand after everything's assembled. It is difficult to recock by hand sometimes, so what I will do is I'll use my Allen key, and I'll just apply a little bit of force while I'm trying to get these threads to catch on the back of the bolt, and I find it easier than trying to recock after the fact. So we'll just put it in there. And once you get your threads to catch like that, super easy to reassemble, and the bolt is already cocked, so you don't have to worry about it. Just be mindful of your handle orientation as you tighten it up. Everything should go together just fine like that. And that's it, guys. I mean, just a matter of minutes, and we've got the dash kit installed. We'll give this a final twist once we have it back in the rifle to make sure everything's tightened up, but Anarchy Outdoors bolt handle with the dragon scale knob. Again, I think I mentioned in the first video, this is the shorter knob of the 2. They have a shorter and a longer version. I chose the shorter. I didn't want it to protrude as much. And then the Dash bolt lift kit for the 2019 plus Savage models, the single piece firing pin. Next, we're going to remove the stock from the barreled action, and we will install the M-Carbo trigger kit. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the barreled action from the stock. so that we can install the M-Carbo trigger kit. And to do that, we're going to simply turn the rifle up on its side, loosen and remove the action screws. You can use an Allen key for this. I just had my Wheeler fat wrench sitting here. Once those are nice and loose, go ahead and pull the stock off of the barreled action and set it aside. And that will give us access to the trigger assembly. We do not need to remove the trigger assembly to install the M-Carbo trigger kit. We can work with it as it is here. Let me show you what's inside of the M-Carbo trigger kit, and then we will start working with it. Some good staples. So inside of the kit, you will get a few different springs. So you've got a 2.5 pound spring, a 1.5 pound spring, and a 3.5 pound spring. So you can tune this how you want it. Everyone likes their trigger pull a little bit different. It'll also come with a tube of super lube, 2 washers, and another trigger stop. So you can install all of that following the instructions that M-Carbo provides online as well. All right, so we've zoomed in a little bit so you can see the M-Carbo trigger spring install a little bit easier. I want to start by saying this will not be my final assembly of this rifle. I want to do a full front to back assembly video with my father and son involved. This is mainly just test fitting to make sure I've got the components I want before I assemble everything for the final time. So this assembly usually calls for Loctite on the trigger over travel screw and to lube the washers when you're installing them. I won't be doing that today, but you can follow M-Carbo's instructions when you install your trigger spring kit. First thing that we do is push from the other side to make sure this E-clip is fully exposed. And then with a flathead screwdriver, we want to push it off. They say that these things like to fly off, so just be very careful removing it. It's a very small part. I'm going to go ahead and set it over here out of frame. Once that is there, you can apply some downward pressure on the trigger and remove the pin, holding it in. They use a 5/32 Allen key to pop it right out. And there's your trigger. The next thing we're going to do is remove the factory spring that's in the back and install from the bottom up this over travel screw. At this point, if you follow M-Carbo's instructions, they would recommend that you use Loctite, blue Loctite on this. Like I said, like I said, we're not going to be doing that today. They want you to thread it all the way in where it's flush. They said you can adjust it as you like, but they recommend threading it in flush. Okay. After that, we're going to take our 1.5 pound spring. So that's the spring I plan to use. And we're going to just set it right on there. Now, if you're following M-Carbo's instructions, they will tell you to use the included super lube on the sides for the washers. That has 2 effects. It adds lubrication for the trigger, but also it holds the washers on for reassembly, which is very useful. I'm going to attempt to reinstall without the super lube and see if we are able to do so. See if we can get these to line up just right. We're going to use the Allen key as a slave pin to try to get everything perfectly aligned. There we go. Not too bad. And then we're going to reinsert our pin. Easier said than done. It looks pretty even. I don't know where we're out of whack. Let's try again. Hey. There we are. All right. So pin's back in, and final thing we're going to do is just reinstall that E-clip. So we'll push in the back. There it is. That's it. M-Carbo trigger spring kit. Again, just a few minutes, guys. This is the only piece that we actually removed, which is the factory trigger spring. So we'll hold on to that as well. So the next thing we're going to do is test fit the Shaw barrel on the action. I've already used the Wheeler action wrench and the included Savage barrel nut wrench to loosen the nut. I will show you how that works again once we decide to set headspace. We will not be setting headspace right now. We will do that in the final video when I do the full final assembly. This is just to test fit the barrel and make sure it's exactly what we want before we go further with the build. So with that barrel nut loose, we can start to remove the action from the barrel. Initially, when I broke this free, it was a little tight. 3 whacks with a mallet to get the nut to loosen up. And there was all kinds of material on the threads for the factory Savage barrel. I cleaned it up a little bit. I made sure that there was no material left inside the threads on the action. So we cleaned it up as well. Let's get this. Now when we do the head spacing, we will reinstall this barrel using the headspace gauge to make sure that everything is correct. But for today, we're just going to test fit to make sure everything fits in the stock that we've selected, that we like the way everything feels, that the weight is right. Just lock it down right there. So still going to be loose, and that's okay. Just making sure that we like how it's set up. All right, next step of the test fit is going to be to mate the barreled action with the MDT field stock. For that, we're going to use the 3/16 Allen key. We're not going to torque it today. Again, not the final fitting. Just test fitting to make sure it's exactly what we want. You will need a longer Allen key for the rear action screw. It's pretty deep in there. Let's see if we can stand this up. There we go. And let's make sure that our safety is operable. One thing about the Savage Axis, the the rear tang sort of floats a little bit, so you want to make sure that the safety is where it should be. I have to torque this down just a hair. There is a rubber washer around the rear action screw on the MTT field stock, and really allows you to get a good level of torque on there without hurting anything. Much better. Positive click. I'm sure when we torque it to spec, it will be even better. But a positive click there. Let's see if we can insert the bolt. All right. And there we have it, guys. So we haven't mounted an optic or a rail or anything yet, but bolt lift, man, way better compared to what it was. You can tell just by, I mean, I can probably do it, yeah, just one-handed like that. Significantly better bolt lift with the dash kit and the extended bolt handle. And I like the way the bolt handle looks as well. All right, we're gonna test fit the Warren Vapor Rail and the Burris Optic with the Warren Maxima rings. Make sure that they line up. With regards to the Vapor Rail, the hardware that comes with the Vapor Rail is coated. And there are two different types of screw patterns on the Savage Axis. You want to make sure that you select the correct screw pattern for your rifle. But when you're installing the hardware the first time with these coated screws, you may feel as if you have picked the wrong screw pattern. Verify that you've got the correct one, and then just go ahead and push through. These coated screws, they are more difficult to install the first time. It will feel almost as if you are cross-threading it. Oftentimes you are not. As long as you verify you've got the correct screw pattern, you shouldn't have to worry about it. So these are the Maxima rings. Usually, if I don't use the Warren Maxima rings, it's because I'm using the Tally two-piece. I like that system. It works on several rifles. On this, I didn't know how much adjustment I would want or need. So we decided to use the Warren. We're just gonna get her on here. You can see the optics not tight in the rings at all. We really just want to test fit everything and make sure that it's where we want to be. If you've never used a Burris optic before, I really do like Burris optics. I've used Nikon, Leupold, Vortex. Vortex has some great optics as well. I've used several. Burris for the money, especially when you can find them on sale like I found this optic, especially if you're trying to do a budget build. Great glass, very clear, good light, works. All right, so this is the finished test fit. Everything's on there. Scope lined up just perfect for me. I can still adjust the comb on the back of the field stock, which is one of the features I really like. But bolt slides freely, we can adjust. I'm glad I went with the Warren rail instead of the Tally rings. I probably would not have been to adjust the scope like I like it if I used the Tally rings. So the rail with the separate mounts was the way to go on this one. With the MDT made Savage mag, this is a 5-rounder. Again, branded Savage, made for the Axis Precision 2, but made by MDT. Everything comes together great. I think it looks great. It feels real well in the hand. A little heavy on the front, but balances well when I put it to the shoulder. The bolt's super smooth. The bolt lift is way lighter than what it was. And the trigger pull, very nice. Much lighter than it was before as well. So we will get into more detail once we do the final fitting. We will headspace everything. We'll show torque spec on the stock, torque spec on the scope. We'll go into detail a little bit more on each piece, but this is really just putting it all together and making sure this is what we want. We'll take it to the range. We'll test out some groups, see how different ammo works in it. If we're getting good groups, we'll probably end up tearing it down again and having the barrel threaded, because we do want to shoot suppressed if possible. I do have a 36 cal suppressor, so that will work handily with this rifle. But thanks again for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hope you like what you're seeing. If you do, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on part 3, where we will do the final assembly and then show some groups. Thanks again. Have a good one.